there's a few parents here as well. Um, but so basically, what we're going to do today is go over a presentation I've never done before. And I'm going to give you guys some tips on college scholarships and a lot of other things. So to introduce myself, my name is Sean Patel. I am the founder of 2400 Expert. When I was in high school, I raised my own score from average to perfect. I ended up writing a book about my experience in writing SAT prep tips for students. I now run the largest SAT test prep company in Las Vegas called 2400 Expert. And we've expanded across the country now. We were opening locations in around 20 cities across the US. What else can I tell you? Oh, school-wise, I'm still a student as well. I'm currently an MD MBA student at USC and Yale. And so I am still a student as well as running the company. Sorry, it looks like my video cut out there for a second. But if you notice something, the logo and the company name on these slides is a little bit different. It's called Prep Expert. And that's because in March of 2016, we'll be changing our company name to Prep Expert. So you guys are seeing sort of a sneak peek at some of our slides that are coming out in 2016. So in any case, what we'll do, oh great, yeah. So what we'll do today is go over a lot of these tips and we'll take some questions and hopefully you guys will learn a lot. All right. So the first tip is basically the #1 predictor of success. So parents often ask us at 2400 Expert, how their son or daughter can achieve success in high school. Well, it all starts with developing a single trait. So let's take this quiz here. Which trait do you think is the best predictor of success? Do you think it's your IQ, your emotional intelligence, your grit, your self-control, or your vision? So Alex thinks your grit. Any other guesses from people? Esmeralda thinks it's your self-control. Sabrina thinks it's your self-control. Gus thinks. So pretty much everyone is saying D, it's your self-control. And you guys are right about that. So the answer is self-control. Self-control is the most universal and accurate predictor of success. So if you want your child or you to be successful, you need to be able to manage your emotions, delay gratification, and work really hard. All of this requires a lot of self-control. Now, possessing self-control is harder than ever today, primarily because of technology. So technology's added a lot of distractions to our daily lives, especially as teenagers. You have email, you have text messaging, you have Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, Twitter, YouTube, Netflix, right? So there's so many distractions. And so for those of you that are students, having the self-control to avoid these enticing platforms is not easy. But if you want to have success in high school, you must turn off the internet, you must turn off the internet, you must silence your phone when you're studying, etc., right? So there was actually a famous Stanford marshmallow experiment, which was proof that self-control is crucial to success. So in this 1972 experiment, researchers basically placed 4 to 6-year-old children in a room with just marshmallows, or just one marshmallow, I should say. And the children were told they could eat the one marshmallow now, or if they waited 15 minutes, they'd be rewarded with 2 marshmallows. Now, this experiment was conducted on about 600 children, and only about a third of the children were able to exercise enough self-control to not eat the marshmallow immediately. Now, if you go on YouTube, you can watch some really funny videos of the recreations. Some researchers have redone this experiment and recorded the children. It's actually very funny to see how hard it is for the children to not eat the marshmallow immediately. But what they found was the children that were found to be more successful, the children that were able to not eat the marshmallow right away were found to be more successful based on a variety of life outcomes. So they scored 210 points higher on average on their SATs. They earned higher salaries. They were more popular with their peers and teachers. They had lower BMIs and better overall health. BMI stands for body mass index. And then they possess fewer drug and alcohol problems, right? So many other studies have continuously found that self-control is a massive predictor of achievement. So the real takeaway here is, the secret so and so to being successful in high school, or the secret to being successful in life, really, is to practice self-control. So that's one tip, just a general tip, not specifically towards the SAT, but it could definitely help you with the SAT. When you need to study for the SAT, practice self-control, make sure you're not getting distracted, right? So the next tip is, the secret, quote unquote, to a perfect SAT or ACT score, or really just a high SAT or ACT score. Um, the secret is really practice with College Board SAT or ACT Inc. questions only. So this secret, quote unquote, is so simple that it hardly seems like a secret, right? So every high scoring SAT student that I have ever known has followed this prep advice. So many parents buy students, 10 SAT practice tests by company X, right? But if you or your child is practicing with SAT questions that are produced by Princeton Review, Kaplan, Barron's, or any company other than the College Board, then oftentimes they're preparing for the SAT incorrectly. So the College Board is the company that creates the SAT. So they're the ones that produce the most similar questions to the ones that you're going to encounter on test day. Um, oh, am I skipping for everyone, or am I just skipping for Peyton, my video feed? Okay, Peyton, it might be your internet connection. Seems like most people are okay, but okay, maybe I was skipping earlier, but hopefully it's fixed now. So the questions that the College Board produces are really the most similar ones to the ones that you're going to encounter on test day. In fact, many of the questions that the College Board releases have actually been used on past SAT exams. Producing accurate test questions is not easy. The College Board spends millions of dollars writing questions, testing them, and making sure the questions are standardized, and other companies just don't have the budget or resources to create questions that are nearly as accurate. So, unfortunately, though, the College Board hasn't released that many official tests for the new SAT. But we make sure as we move into our new SAT test that we have enough practice for students both with the College Board, and then we have to supplement with some of our own questions. I don't like supplementing a lot with our own questions because the ones that even I write are not going to be as good as the ones the College Board writes. But we have to do that in the beginning until the College Board releases more SAT test materials for the new SAT coming out in 2016, right? All right, a strategy for how to get into the Ivy League. So if you want to attend an Ivy League institution or any competitive university, really, I wanted to share a little bit of a little known secret related to college admissions, right? So this secret is basically you want to impress the college's regional admissions officer to increase your chances. So colleges want students that want them, right? They don't want to offer admission to a student who doesn't want them or who's not going to attend their institution. So therefore, a lot of qualified students who apply to universities without expressing any interest in that university are often rejected from that university. Now, one of the best ways to express interest is for you to get to know the college's regional admission officer. So the college's regional admission officer is a full-time staff member at the admissions office who is assigned to a certain geographic region for that university. So for example, they might be responsible for all students for the California, Nevada, and Arizona region. Now, this person will not only visit that region during the fall, but that person will also be the first person to read applications from his or her assigned area. So if you have met that regional admissions officer who's responsible for your geographic area, then that person might, just advocate to move your application forward in the admissions process, right? And so you should start by emailing the admissions office of the university that you want to go to and finding out who the regional admissions officer for your geographic area is. Then you want to have your child or you send this person an email and find out if they're going to be visiting your region anytime soon. So, if your child does have the chance to meet them, or if you're a student, make sure that you make a good first impression. It can really be the difference between acceptance and rejection. For example, I'll give you an example. I really wanted to go to Brown University when I was applying to college because they had a good medical program. And when I was applying, I signed up for when the regional admissions officer was coming to my high school. And what happened was I was the only student who signed up. So it was literally just a one-on-one meeting with the regional admissions officer of Nevada for Brown University and me. And so she got to know me pretty well. She got to know about my background, etc. And I got her email, and I emailed her throughout the admissions process, etc. And when it came to admissions time, I got into Brown University, right? I didn't end up going because I ended up getting a lot more scholarships at other universities. But I think that knowing the regional admissions officer really makes a difference in your college application. So we've covered a lot so far. Any questions on anything we've covered so far relates to SAT, colleges, self-control, etc.? Um, Not necessarily. It's not, you don't need to apply to all eight. It really depends on, whether those universities have the programs you're looking for and you like every Ivy League university is a little bit different, right? So whether you like that particular school as well. I personally don't because oftentimes they change. But you can easily find out by emailing the admissions officer or admissions office of each Ivy League university or whichever university you'd like to go to. Um, Really, I mean, they want to see students that are passionate, right? Whether it's passionate about your interests, passionate about academics, passionate about your extracurriculars, anything about that shows that you're passionate and you have, um, some cause that you're really supporting, right? So that's really something that's good. Yeah, so I mean, I would definitely read up on their website. Every university is different, but in general, to get into a great university, you do need. I mean, the first step is getting great grades and getting great SAT or ACT score. Then everything else comes, whether that's extracurriculars, leadership, community service, etc. Right? All right. So the next tip I want to give you guys is how to find easy scholarships to win. So when I was in high school, I won $250,000 in scholarships to go to college completely free. I applied for 100 scholarships my senior year of high school, and I ended up winning about 20 of those. And so, I know a thing or two about applying to scholarships and how to win them. So the biggest and simplest secret to help your child secure a debt-free college experience is to know that local scholarships are easier to win. So the fewer applicants there are to a particular scholarship, the greater your child's chances are of winning that scholarship. And local scholarships undoubtedly have fewer applicants than national scholarships, right? For example, if your child applies to a scholarship that's only open to students in your state, then the competition has already been reduced by at least 50 times, right? So this means that applying for those national scholarships is actually a waste of time. Many students go on FastWeb and look for big national scholarships and start applying to those. That's actually, I did that too, and I had great stats in high school, right? Perfect SAT score, I was valedictorian, and I still didn't win any of those. So what I'm trying to do is save you a lot of time and money applying for those scholarships, right? Instead, focus on local scholarships. So here are a few places to find local scholarships. One is visit your counselor's office. So your counselor will often have a resource of local community scholarships. Companies often announce a scholarship to notify by notifying high school counselors, but sometimes those counselors don't tell students, and so you need to go and ask your counselor or college counselor at your high school. So that's one place. Another place is to research online, right? You can find local scholarships relatively easy by doing some Google searches, right? So let's say you live in Burbank, California. You would type in California scholarships, Burbank scholarships, Los Angeles scholarships, Southern California scholarships, right? Any type of term that you could think of for your geographic area, right? And what will happen is you'll quickly find scholarships that you've both both you and your child have never heard of. And that's a good thing because the more obscure, the more unknown the scholarship, the fewer applicants it is likely to have. I won some very random scholarships in high school because no one else was really applying for them, right? Because I really dug and tried to find scholarships. And so that's a really good strategy there. Another thing you can do to find local scholarships is just ask around, right? Word of mouth is key. Oftentimes, parents of older high school students or older high school students themselves know of scholarships that are specific to your community and school. So ask around, both at your high school and in your community. If parents or students who have won scholarships in the past, where did they get them from? And are there local companies? You should also apply for national local scholarships. So national locals just is sort of a made-up term. I just made it up. But it basically is a national scholarship that allocates a certain number of scholarships to each city or state, right? So the Coca-Cola scholarship is a huge national scholarship. Millions of students apply to the Coca-Cola scholarship. But I still consider it as you having a good chance of winning that because that scholarship gives a few scholarships to students in every state. So even though it's a national scholarship that everyone can apply to, you're really only competing against other students in your state. Does that make sense to everyone? What I mean by a national local scholarship? So you have to read the fine print of these scholarship things and see, do they give out a certain number of scholarships to every state, etc. Right? And then finally, the last place you should look for local scholarships is local scholarship foundations, right? So if you're in Las Vegas, for those of you in Las Vegas, you may want to write this down. The Clark County Public Education Foundation, or CCPEF, it's in the second bullet point there, is a really good resource for local scholarships in Las Vegas, for those of you that are from Las Vegas in this particular webinar. The sole purpose of this organization is to give out scholarships. There are a lot of individuals, organizations, and companies that want to give money to the youth, but donors often don't want to start their own scholarship program. So instead, they hire organizations like CCPEF to create, manage, and disperse the scholarships on their behalf. CCPEF has a database of hundreds of scholarships worth millions of dollars that are only open to Las Vegas students. And so what you guys definitely want to do is look into the CCPEF. Most of the scholarships are only open to seniors, but there are other scholarships such as ones given out by 2400 Expert where we give it out to all students, whether you're a freshman, sophomore, junior, it doesn't matter. Now, there are similar scholarship foundations, usually in every big city. So if you're from a big city or a state, most states and cities will have some type of foundation that is analogous to the Clark County Public Education Foundation, right? All right. So once you've identified which local scholarships you want to apply for, it's time to focus on your applications. Put the deadlines for each scholarship on a family calendar so that you both don't forget, and make sure your son or daughter works weeks in advance to put together some of the best possible application, especially the essay. By putting together really good applications for local scholarships, you're almost guaranteed to win at least a few scholarships, and so hopefully that'll help you win thousands of dollars towards your college education, right? Now, this is a tip that's mainly relevant to students that are freshmen and sophomores. Do we have any freshmen and sophomores or parents of freshmen and sophomores here? Okay, so a few. So for those of you that are sophomores or younger, what I want to do is tell you about a way to easily get $100,000 in scholarships. So basically, if you score well on the PSAT, you can receive over $100,000 in scholarships. The PSAT is also the National Merit Scholarship Qualifying Test. National Merit is not only an impressive award to have on your college application, but it's also a scholarship. So you'll get a $2,500 scholarship directly from National Merit. But more importantly, a lot of universities offer half tuition or full tuition scholarships exclusively to National Merit scholars. So let me give you some examples of full tuition scholarships. For example, the University of Arizona here gives you $120,000, a full tuition scholarship that's worth $120,000. They give you an iPad and an extra $1,500 just because you're a National Merit Scholar. UNLV, I know a lot of students here are from Vegas. gives you $80,000 plus they pay all of your expenses to study abroad, whether you want to go to Europe or something like that. So those are just some examples of literally dozens around the nations of universities that give full tuition scholarships to national merit finalists. A lot of universities give half tuition scholarships. So USC, where I currently go to med school, gives you $100,000, a half tuition scholarship basically at USC for 4 years if you're a national merit scholar. UNR, again, I know a lot of people are from Nevada here, gives you a half tuition scholarship worth $70,000. And this is all just because you're a national merit finalist, right? And so you can essentially receive $100,000 to $200,000 just for scoring high on one test. But how high do you really need to score on the PSAT? So it really depends on the state in which you live. So more competitive states have higher national merit cutoff scores to become a national merit finalist. So you want to look at your state's previous year's PSAT cutoffs for national merit, and that'll give you a good idea of what you need to score in order to qualify. Now, unlike the SAT or the ACT that you can take multiple times, the PSAT can only be taken once, October of your junior year. Now, if you took it as a sophomore, that score does not count towards the national merit. That was only practice. So only October of your junior year, which is why I asked. This is only relevant really to freshmen and sophomores because October of your junior year already passed for juniors. So it's really only freshmen and sophomores in this seminar that this particular tip is relevant for. And so what you don't need to do is study for the PSAT separately from the SAT. We actually don't offer a PSAT course because the PSAT is really just an easier version of the SAT. There's no essay, there's easier math, it's half the length of the SAT. So students should just study for the SAT. If your child studies for the SAT prior to October of his or her junior year, then your student will basically be over-prepared for the PSAT. So make sure your child is in good position to score well on the PSAT so that he or she can qualify for national merit. Yeah, so unfortunately, if most students didn't think the PSAT counted for much, and you don't take it very seriously. Unfortunately, like if October of your junior year when you took that PSAT has passed, you don't qualify for these things anymore. And now you need to just focus on scoring really well on the SAT and hope that the SAT will qualify you for a lot of scholarships at many universities, which it can. So that's really your only option now. But for students whose October of their junior year has not passed yet, definitely become a national merit scholar. There's all kinds of benefits, as I've already shown you. Half tuition scholarships, full tuition scholarships, $2,500 scholarship. It'll be great on college application, etc. Right? No, if you qualify, you're immediately considered. Yeah, exactly. If your score qualifies. All right. So you don't need to apply separately or anything. So how to stay focused when studying. I want to give you guys some tips on how to stay focused when studying, primarily because in high school you're expected to study, in college you're expected to study. In medical school, when I went, I was expected to study. In business school, I'm expected to study. So you're always expected to study through high school, through postgraduate and graduate education. But no one ever teaches you how to study, right? So I want to give you guys some tips on how to study. I'm not sure when PSAT scores come out this year. Do they come out this month or next month? I'm not sure exactly. No, the first tip I can give you is to turn off the tech. So these days it's really easy to be distracted by technology. We talked about email, text messaging, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Snapchat. When you study for a standardized exam, turn off the internet, silence your cell phone, and study from books if you can, right? So you'll be amazed, or if you're studying from a tablet or laptop, turn off the internet at least. You'll be amazed at how much work you're able to accomplish without all of the technological distractions, right? Number two is start with the hardest thing. So studying can entail a lot of different tasks, right? What you want to do is start with the hardest task first. For example, when studying for the SAT, you always want to begin with memorizing vocabulary words because memorizing vocabulary words is very taxing on the brain. It's rote memorization. It's hard to do. And so if you start with this task first, your mind is going to be freshest at the beginning, and that will help you quite a bit as you're studying. Number three is to time tasks. So put a time limit on the task that you need to complete. So for example, If you can read 20 pages in an hour, then try to stick to that reading speed. Like be like, okay, I'm going to start at 12 and end at 1, and at the end of 1, I want to have 20 pages read. And that'll really keep you very goal-oriented during your studying if you time your tasks, right? Number 4 is to take breaks. So ironically, one of the best ways to stay focused is to take breaks. Your mind just can't concentrate for more than an hour or two. So you want to build in time into your study schedule to take breaks. So for example, if you have a 4-hour study block sort of in your day, you should reward yourself after each hour by taking a 10 or 15-minute break to whatever you want to do, whether it's text message, email, Facebook, restroom, snack, whatever. Um, then, after you come back from your break, try to do another difficult task, because oftentimes after eating or after a break, your mind is again refreshed, right? So take breaks every hour or two, I would say, during study. And then you want to introduce study variation. So study variation basically means you don't want to do the same thing for 4 hours straight, right? Instead, break up each hour by doing different tasks. So for example, you might have the following SAT studies schedule. So hour 1, memorize vocab words, then take a 10-minute break. Hour 2, read new SAT strategies, then take a 10-minute break. Hour 3, review previous SAT strategies and questions, 10-minute break, and then hour 4, maybe practice new questions, right? So notice how there's a little bit of everything in there. You're memorizing things, you're reading things, you're reviewing things, you're practicing things, right? And by doing this, you're not doing the same thing for more than an hour. And this variation basically makes the 4 hours of studying much more bearable. And then finally, number 6 is to not multitask. So there are many studies that prove that multitasking does not work. If you want to really be productive, focus on one task at a time. For example, don't try to watch TV and study at the same time. All right, so that's how to stay focused when studying. The next thing I'll cover is how to stay focused when actually taking the SAT or ACT. So the reason that it's often so hard for many students to focus during the actual SAT or ACT is because it's actually just a boring exam, right? So most people are not interested in a standardized test. For example, why does your child understand an article she reads on Facebook much better than she understands an SAT reading passage? A lot of the reason is probably because your child is actually interested in the Facebook article, right? The only way to increase your child's comprehension and focus during a standardized exam is to become interested and engaged. So no matter how boring the reading passage, the grammatical rule, or math problem, your child really needs to act like he or she is interested. If you want to help your child stay focused during an exam, help him or her become interested in the exam, no matter how boring it actually is. And then tip number 8 is to conquer test day stress. So in order to conquer test day stress, you really need to focus on the present moment. Basically, this comes from a book by Eckhart Tolle called The Power of Now that states, the key to happiness is to focus on the present moment. In addition, a book called How to Stop Worrying and Start Living by Dale Carnegie states to live in day-type compartments. Basically, both of these books assert that people become stressed, for example, test day stress, because they regret the past or worry about the future rather than focusing on the present. This is extremely, extremely true for standardized tests. The primary reason that a lot of students get test anxiety is due to worry about the future, right? You worry about how the test might turn out, and it causes many students a significant amount of stress. Now, to combat this worry, have your child focus on today, not tomorrow. For example, during the week leading up to the test, try to help your child avoid thinking too much about the upcoming tests. Instead, focus on practice questions and studying that can be done today. Now, the night before the test, try to help your child focus on the current day rather than tomorrow. Focusing on the next day often leads to lack of sleep the night before the exam, so try to stop thinking about the next day or what might happen or what could happen in the future and just focus on today. Does that all make sense? It's a little bit different than what you might hear. Right? I will take the silence as a yes, or maybe a no. So how to get an excellent letter of recommendation. So As you guys know, letters of recommendation are very important to your college application as well as to scholarship applications. So recommendation letters are basically an essential part of the college and scholarship application process. And what you want to do is choose the right teachers to write your child's recommendation letter. So your son or daughter must select a teacher who he or she has developed a good relationship with, right? The teacher should know your child well so that he or she can write about specific examples of her interactions with your child. Your son or daughter should also select a teacher who can write well. So having a great relationship with a teacher who can't write well or a teacher who uses the same cookie cutter template for every student is not going to help you. So you really need to determine whether the person that knows you really well, your teacher, your mentor, whoever's going to write your recommendation letter, can they write a really good letter? Like, English teachers are often a good um, person to go to in terms of writing letters because English teachers can, usually write pretty well. But sometimes your math or science teacher might not be able to write that well, and that might, even though they might know you better than your English teacher, sometimes it's not a good idea to get a recommendation letter from them because they are not so great at writing. And at the end of the day, the recommendation letter really counts depending on how well it's written. I remember my best recommendation letter in high school was from my high school English teacher because she just wrote an awesome, awesome letter because she was able to write. And so make sure you get your recommendation letter from someone who can write. All right, last thing I'm going to cover for today is how to get into med school, law school, farm school, or dental school from high school. Is anyone here interested in postgraduate study at one of these schools? Okay, so it seems like quite a few, most people actually. And so what I'm going to do is, discuss these programs with respect to medical school. But know that there are programs that exist also for law school, for pharmacy school, dental school, and even business school. So, to give you an idea, many students aspire to become physicians, but as you probably know, the path is often very difficult. In the United States, it often takes 11 to 15 years after high school, so you have to go to 4 years of college, 4 years of medical school, and 3 to 7 years of residency into your chosen specialty. And one of the most difficult parts of the process is simply getting into medical school after college, right? So unfortunately, some students, I want to say actually a lot of students who want to become physicians often end up not pursuing their dream because they are unable to get acceptance into medical school, right? So I don't want that to be you. And so what I want to tell you about is these combined programs. But before I do, um, medical school admission is extremely competitive. Acceptance rates are often less than 5%, and medical schools often look for students, with a pre-med background, a high GPA, a high MCAT score, basic science research experience, clinical experience, international volunteering experience. So all of these things you need to do in college, right? And even with all of that, students often need to take 1 to 2 years off after college in order to do more research before they can gain admission into medical school. So, in other words, students need to work really, really hard during undergraduate or college in order to get into medical school. But there is really a way to bypass this whole medical school rat race, and that is basically what's called BAMD or BSMD programs. So approximately 50 colleges across the nation have combined medical programs, or they're known as BSMD or BAMDs. I was in one at USC, and the reason I chose it is because high school students who are accepted into these programs are guaranteed a spot in the medical school. However, BSMD programs are very competitive as well. There's often only a few seats in each program, and acceptance rate to these programs are often less than 5%. So high school students who gain admission into one of these programs often have high GPAs, very competitive SAT scores, hospital volunteering experience, research experience, and community service. Students who are able to get into one of these programs often have a much better undergrad experience. I can tell you from experience, my undergraduate experience was very relaxed. It was easier than high school actually, and it was nice knowing that I was already in medical school. Some well-known programs exist at Brown, Northwestern, and Boston University. The one that I went to, like I said, USC, unfortunately, is discontinued. But there are many across the nation, like I said, around 50. All you need to do is search BAMD or BSMD programs in Google to find them. And that is the last tip I will leave you with. Any questions, guys? No, unfortunately, they discontinued it a couple years ago. Any questions on any we covered today related to SAT, college, um, anything like that? Yeah, I think is usually a good way to see how the hospital works, and if you can shadow a doctor and see how they practice, that's usually a good idea. Yeah, so scholarship, like I said, all those places that we discussed about how to find local scholarships. Um, 3.5 GPA is not bad, but you definitely need a high SAT score or ACT score to balance that out. Yeah, definitely. For those of you that are asking about your GPAs not being as high as you'd like, um, a high uh, a high SAT or ACT score can definitely balance that out. Yes, there are BSM MBA programs. I'm not fully too familiar with them, but I know they exist. Yeah, Gus, there are some programs that allow you to go directly into business school. Medical schools basically are looking for all of these things. Matt, yeah, that's medical school is very stressful. There is a lot of studying and a lot of work involved. The current SAT class that's actually starting in a few hours today does cover a lot of material for the new SAT. The new SAT isn't all that different from the current SAT. I actually think the new SAT is a bit easier than the current SAT. But our new SAT classes start next week over winter break as well as in January. Yeah, so a lot of those study tips that we talked about earlier, Karen or Karen, I think it's Karen. Sorry about that. Will definitely help in terms of raising your GPA. Nina, just be yourself, really. Mhm. Yeah, so I'm currently an MD MBA student. So I'm currently finishing my last year of business school at Yale, and then I have one more year of medical school at USC. And so I'd like to do a little bit of both, be a physician as well as do maybe some healthcare management, as well as continue to run this company. I love Yale. It's great, great school. Highly recommend it to all of you. Well, you guys are welcome. And if you guys are interested in SAT classes, there are, like I said, one starting today for the current SAT, and then our new SAT one start next week over winter break. Hopefully today was helpful. I wish you guys all the best, both with SAT, colleges, scholarships, all of that. Hopefully you guys learned a lot. And yeah, you can definitely email me. My email is just basically 24expert.com. If you ever need it again, go to the About section, and my email is there as well. Um, Good luck, guys, and thanks for joining me this Sunday afternoon. Have a good rest of your weekend. All right, bye, guys.